So, hi everybody, my name is Rhiannon Berry and I'm from St. Catharines, Ontario. And I have been facilitating creative wellness and creative rec-based programming like gentle painting for close to 10 years now. I also sorry, I just got a message there. Okay, there's messages popping in and out as people come. So sorry about that. So I also organize creative wellness retreats and different programming in the city and beyond. And today we are going to be creating together in a class that I call Gentle Painting. And it's a take on the traditional painting classes, the social painting classes. However, it's more of a focus on mindfulness and creative exploration. So we expect everybody's paintings to look a little bit different. So it's okay if yours doesn't look exactly like mine, and it's not supposed to in the end. So we want you to explore the different techniques today and come out with something that you find beautiful. And we do also encourage you to choose your own color palette. However, if you're inspired by mine, that's great too. You can paint along with the colors that I use. So the first thing I want to do is just check everybody's supplies. So I'm going to run through all of the supplies that you're going to need. And then next I will do a little mindfulness grounding exercise to get everybody ready to paint. And then after that, I will lead you through some tips and tricks to paint this impressionist water lily painting. So first things first, I'm just going to go ahead and turn my camera a little bit so that you can see what we're painting today, and then go through the supplies with you. So today you're going to need a few different brushes. I have some examples here of a flat square brush. So this is a variety of examples of what you can use. So basically I have anything that's flat and square. And then I also have this one. So if you have something that's on an angle, that's fine too. And then you can use different levels. So different sizes, as long as you have something that's flat and square. The other brush you're going to need needs to have a tip on it. So in the description, I said a round brush. So this is what I'm talking about. So this is a round brush. You can see it has a tip. This is for making the water lilies and maybe putting in some details if you want to at the end. So what I have here is a size 9, a size 3, a 6, and a 4. So again, just depending on, let's see if I can get that. There we go. Just depending on the size of the canvas you decide to use, you might want to switch those sizes up as well. But this is all about exploring and being creative. So, oh, am I frozen?
No,
I hope not.
I can see you.
Oh, was I for a minute? Okay, well, let me know in the comments if you missed anything. Okay, and then I'm using today, this is a 20 by 16 canvas, so it's fairly large. You don't have to use one that big. You can use something smaller. This one, this is an example of the colors that I will be painting today and the techniques that I will be showing you. But you can use a smaller canvas. I think this is 11 by 7. So you can practice on that. If you don't have a canvas, you can use a piece of paper as well. Next, you're going to need paints. So if you have some of these paints, I get them from the dollar store. They're like basic acrylic. You can use that. It's a bit of a thicker paint. But this brand from the dollar store will work as well. So whatever acrylic paints you have are great. If you're working with oil, I wouldn't recommend it for today just because this is a fast drying painting. So you want the layers to dry fairly quickly so we can move on to the next layer. Now you're gonna also want a rag or some paper towel because it can get messy. You're going to want a glass with some water to rinse off your brushes. You may want some fresh water as well, so maybe 2 glasses of water, one for rinsing off your brushes and one for getting your canvas a little wet. For me, I have a little squirt bottle that I use, and I just kind of squirt over the canvas, not a lot, just a little bit. It helps with the let the paint flow and blend a little bit better. And as well, in the description, I promise a little bit of different techniques, so with different tools. So I do have a little paintbrush or a paint knife here. And if you don't have a paint knife, you can cut a little piece of hard cardboard or something like that to experiment with. We won't be using this a lot, but it's an interesting tool to play around with. And yeah, so that's my supplies that I have here. So what I want to do is I want to give everybody about 3 to 5 minutes to run and get a glass of water if they need one. If you need a drink, go grab a drink. And of course, at any time, if you need to use the restroom for any reason, you can get up and go. And when you come back, if you need help catching up, you can do that. So I'm just going to give everybody 3 to 5 minutes to make sure you have chosen your colors and put them out on your palette. So this is my color palette. I have yellow, a yellow green, forest green, magenta, a brilliant blue, and then I have purple, like a violet, and another lighter blue on this side. So these are the colors I'm going to be using. And of course, white, lots of white, but, and I'm going to be using the dollar store white. So with that in mind, you can use this color palette, or you can opt for something that matches your house a little bit or your decor a little bit better. But yeah, again, that's a violet, a lighter, brighter blue. So any blue that you have is fine. I use the brilliant blue here in the middle. I also have yellow, yellow green, forest green, and magenta. And again, too, I can use this blue that's from the dollar store as well. So the dollar store has a ton of different blues. So any blue that you have is great. Yeah, okay, so 3 to 5 minutes, and then we will get started. And for those of you who are ready, again, I'll show you the colors that are in the painting that we're going to be doing today. So you can see it's going to be a lot of mixing. You don't want to pre-mix your colors too much. We'll mix them as we go along. And the thing about the impressionist type painting is you don't have to be exact, so there's a lot of freedom with this today. I'll give it a few minutes. So I hope everybody has their water, maybe something to drink, their brushes ready, and their paint out on a plate or palette. I'm gonna start this off with a bit of a mindful moment. Well, today we want to be in a relaxed space. We want to have the freedom and flow to create and be artistic and let our skills flow freely. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes. And if not, you can choose something to look at. Start by thanking yourself for showing up today, to take part in a mindful creative exercise, and take a deep breath and hold it and let it out. Take another deep breath in and count to 4. And let it out. And we'll do this a few more times. Breathing in and out. And as you breathe, notice what you're hearing around you. Maybe you're in a room that's very quiet and you can hear the buzz of an electronic. Or maybe you're in a room with a window and you can hear things that people are doing and saying outside. Maybe you can hear the wind. Maybe you've noticed the soft guitar music. What do you smell? Do you smell the paint? What does that smell like? Did you make yourself a tea? Or a coffee? Go ahead and open your eyes and taste. And what do you see? Do you see a blank canvas in front of you? What does it feel like? Run your hands across your canvas and notice what it looks like and what it feels like, and maybe even smell it and see what it smells like. So anytime you may feel anxious, like you're falling behind, you can always go back to this breathing technique of breathing and holding for 4 seconds and then breathing out. And as well, if you have any intrusive thoughts during this time together, you can always come back to the technique of what do you taste, what do you smell, what do you feel, what do you see, and what do you hear? And you can come back to the session with us. So I want to start by just mentioning a few interesting facts about Claude Monet, who is the inspiration for this painting today. He was a French painter. He was born in 1840. And he was the beginning of the Impressionist movement. Now, the word Impressionism was given to his work style by a critic, and it was supposed to be an insult. However, he embraced it, and so did a group of painters. And Impressionism is all about capturing light and natural forms in nature. So What you're capturing today is a pondscape, which, as you're sitting outside and painting, like Monet did, the light is constantly changing, the water is constantly flowing. So you're not just painting one scene, but he captured motion. It's also, a lot of people describe it as a sketch of a painting that's never intended to be finished. So you're not going in to try to do all sorts of details. So keep that in mind. And even Monet was frustrated with his work. So there are stories of him destroying an estimate of over 500 of his works out of frustration. The stories are that he would burn them, cut them, kick them. He also suffered from depression and self-doubt quite a bit as well. So today, if you're feeling any of that frustration, I want you to pull yourself out of it with the breath work and just grounding yourself with your 5 senses. Now we're going to be using strong colors, bold, short brush strokes. It might seem a little messy and unorthodox, but I promise you that there is a method to the madness, and you will at the end have something just like Monet intended with his water lily paintings, to have something at the end that is a peaceful meditation and very soothing to viewers. So let's get started on painting some of these fleeting effects of movement and water. And we're not trying to replicate every one of my brush strokes. So just observe and evaluate, but then keep in mind the big picture. You're creating something with atmosphere and air and space and capturing light and in a fun experimental way. So just hold off on applying any details until the end. Okay, so I'm going to get started and I'll walk you through the tips and tricks to get this painting. First off, I'm going to be using my large square brush. So if you have a square brush or flat, this is what you're going to start with. I am going to use one of my blues that I have here. Any blue will do. If you want it to sort of be like a base, you do want to lighten it up if it's a dark blue, and I'll show you the blue that I'm using. So this is the blue here. So if you have a darker blue, you can always add some white to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the whole canvas with this blue. I've dipped my paintbrush in water to help the paint flow a little bit. And this is also a dollar store paint, so it's a little watered down already. You don't want to add too much water to your paint. If you go over that 30% mark with acrylic, it really doesn't stick to the canvas at all, and you're not going to be happy with how it looks in the end. So add a tiny bit of water to your canvas or your paint, and you can always add more if it's not enough, but start small. So I'm just putting in the base color. And this is just a thin layer. It doesn't have to be thick because we are adding more paint on top of it. You won't see this, so it does not have to be perfect. Try to have fun with it. Be free with your brush strokes. And remember to take long, relaxing breaths throughout this whole session. Stay in the moment. A lot of impressionist painters did paint directly on white canvas, but some of them did use a little bit of a base color, and I like to use the base color just because then I know the whole canvas is covered and covered well, and the final painting, there's no little spots sticking out afterwards. Don't be afraid to dip your paintbrush into some water. And always take most of the water off so you don't have it dripping down your canvas. but just that tiny bit of water will help the paint flow better. You can also buy a flow medium if you decide that this is something you want to continue to do. You can get it at most craft stores like Michael's. And what you do is you add a tiny little bit of it to your paint. It takes time to figure out the ratio that you like, but it also takes longer to dry. So I would recommend, if you're going to use flow medium in your paintings in the future, just to maybe keep a blow dryer as part of your art kit. That way you don't have to wait for those layers to dry. Sort of the point of acrylic is that it dries quickly versus oil. So yeah, a blow dryer is like a good tool to have if you're going to use that instead of water. You want to keep the integrity of your paint. And all that means is your painting will last longer. So if you paint a masterpiece and you want it to last for years and years and years, you don't want to have compromise the integrity of the paint with too much water. Yep, so if you're just joining us, or if you are wondering what we're up to, we're just putting a base color of blue, a nice lighter blue. But I'm sure you can use darker blue, you can use a pink. You really can choose whatever background color suits your taste. And this will set the tone for what type of color palette you're going to use and what your painting will look like at the end. However, most of this won't even be seen. It'll be covered by other layers. If you are thinking about at the end, maybe you want to hang this, now is the time to get the sides of your painting if you'd like. You just go around and paint the sides of the canvas. Yep. And if you are painting around the edges of your canvas, you can wait for the top edge to dry and then flip it and paint the other one. Great, I'm happy with my background there, my first layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you a few examples from other paint classes, other like Monet paint classes of different color palettes. So this was a more muted color palette. It included a lot of like yellows and beiges, and then a softer sort of lavendery purple. This is very different from what we're doing today. Very soft. This one was an interesting one too. I think I've done this class a few times. People like this one a lot. So this is sort of in the same color palette that we're doing today, but this is sort of like more of like the lily pads are concentrated on the bottom of the painting. And there's lots of reflections and whatnot in the top part. But today we're just going to do some fun and free lily pads and flowers, lilies all over. Unless, of course, you have a different vision and you would like it to be just on the bottom, on the sides, it's up to you. Right, I'm just going to give everybody 2 minutes to finish their base color and I will go on to the next step. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Give me a thumbs up if you're good to go on to the next step. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step here. So I don't want you to use a black marker on your painting, but I'm going to be using it just to show you exactly what my plan is for where I'm going to place some of these water lilies and lily pads. And it's more of a guide, and everything will be painted over afterwards, but it will also help you visualize where I'm going with my painting. If you want to do the same thing, I recommend using a pencil or a piece of chalk. I'm just kind of giving myself a guide for how large I want these the spaces to be that have the lily pads in them. And of course I can change my mind later and add more. But it just gives me sort of an idea of where to go with these first layers. So the ones at the front are going to be larger, I know that. So I'm going to put a larger circle there just to give myself a little bit of perspective of it going towards the back of the pond, further in. I like a lot of variation. You don't want things to be too similar on both sides because nature isn't like that. You want there to be variation in how far a cluster goes back and things like that. And that just takes a little bit of practice and a keen eye. So as we're going, we're gonna put layers, and if the layers don't look right to you, something looks off in the size, like if these ones end up larger than these ones, you can go back over it. And we add colors until we're quite happy with the outcome. I'm just adding a little bit here, a little bit in here. I'm just following what I did on the example one. But again, it doesn't have to be the same. It can always be a little bit different. Depends on what you're feeling that day. I want to pull it right over. Okay, so I've marked a few spots where I feel like I want to tackle. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pick a color to start with. Now, like I said, we're not going to add details until the end. So this is a very freeing sort of style and part of the painting. You just want to take one of your straighter edge, the square brushes. So you can have one that's medium size or maybe a bit smaller. The smaller one is easier. It feels like you have a little bit more control, but if you only have the larger flat one, that's fine too. Just be very precise in how big you want it. So for instance, when you get further to the back, maybe use the corner. If you have another brush that works for you, please feel free to use that one too. I'll be using these two for the next little while. This one is a 6. And apparently this one is a 6, maybe it's a 9. Yeah, a 9 and a 6. I'm going to start with the middle one here, the 9. So I think what I'll do is I'll start by applying a deeper blue on all of these marks. And I'm going to use my brilliant blue, but I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white to get a different tone. So I'm just going to mix up a blue that's a little bit darker than my background. And once I have that, I think I'll add a little bit of this green color, the darker of my greens to it. And then I have a little bit of a different tone. It's like a greeny blue, dark teal color. Okay, so the reason you want the flat brush is because you're going to be painting in a sideways motion. So the background was all up and down. These water lilies are going to go across. So if we're going up and down with the background, we're going to use the edge and go up and down. If we're painting the lily pads, we're going to turn it horizontal and paint the lily pads going that way. So first we're going to tackle all of the vertical. So we're going to use, I've mixed up some of this dark blue, but you can see in the original painting here, I have some different greens and even like some dark blues and like a little bit of a purple popping through. So it really depends on what you want to do at this point with your color palette, but I will hold mine up here and you can see what I'm going to do. So Again, we're playing with where the light hits and changing in the flow of water. So this is a very free style of painting, and nothing is wrong, everything is right. So what we're doing is we're going vertically. And this is the green I'm using. So without cleaning off your brush, you can add a little bit of water to it. The room I'm in right now is pretty dry, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to mine. And then I'm going to sort of power through this part. So I'm going to add some greens. Green. I have this green too, like a brighter yellow green on the same brush. So I've loaded it up. I haven't cleaned it off. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add different colors in vertical lines. And when I get to some of my markings, I can kind of go around them, but it's okay to go over them too. They're just a guide. Okay, so I've added a lot of green streaks in here. You don't want to blend them all together. You want different colors to kind of pop out, and this should be fun. So I'm going to load up some of that brilliant blue. And I'm going to go back in between some of these. Long strokes. Let the colors sort of blend together and play off each other. And you can think about maybe where the trees above might be reflecting in the water. That's where all these green streaks sort of come from. They're all reflections. Don't be afraid to mix your colors up. So you can mix like maybe a little bit of yellow into a blue, like a little yellow with some blue and white. And I'll give you little variations in the colors. And also don't be afraid to add a little bit of water here and there to your paintbrush. So we're gonna go across and we're gonna do vertical stripes very randomly all the way around the canvas. So these are bold. You don't want to be hesitant. You want to just decide and do it. If you were doing this outside looking at the water, you would just say, you know what? The light seems to be shining here, so I'm just gonna try to mimic that color and put it in there. So maybe that's a lighter color. And then maybe you see a reflection of a tree, so you put a little green here. The next time you look up, the light might have shifted and now this reflection is cast over here somewhere. So the whole point is nature is always moving, light is always changing. Sometimes Monet would do paint the same church, but maybe it was at dusk, and then other times it was in the morning or mid-afternoon, and the colors always shifted and changed. And people were walking around, so you couldn't really stop and paint them exactly because they were moving. So you could just do maybe an impression of what you saw. This whole part is vertical, so up and down strokes. When you get to those marks, you can kind of leave them open a little bit, but they're just there to guide where the water lilies might be. I'm going to add a little bit of that purple color into my blue mixture. Maybe bring in a little bit of purple. There's no real right place to throw the purple, it's just wherever you feel it belongs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my painting closer to the camera in a moment so that if anybody has any trouble seeing exactly what's on my canvas, they get a better idea of what's going on. Okay. So it's just a very freeing, vertical mixture of colors. Try not to overblend them because you do want them to stand on their own. But you also want them to create variations in between. I can hear people outside. There's somebody fixing something on the roof of where I am. If anybody's feeling a little bit overwhelmed or frustrated, this can be hard for people who are used to being sort of told what to put where when it comes to painting classes, or maybe feel like they want a little bit more control over what the paint does. If you're feeling frustrated, or maybe that yours isn't looking exactly like mine, which again, it's not supposed to look exactly like mine, just a variation of. Go back to those 5 senses. What are you hearing right now? What are you feeling? Maybe take a sip of water. What does that taste like? What does the paint smell like? And again, don't be afraid to add a little bit of water. The heat is up pretty high in the room I'm in, so I've been adding a little bit of water here and there as my paint is drying out. Now, I don't recommend doing like all of one color and then coming back and doing all of another one, because you want those blended pieces just before they dry. You add something in there, you have the chance to sort of blend them. I like using a yellow or a yellow-green. Adds little highlights, little sparks of light. We'll be going over, if you've gone into sort of your guided areas where you wanted some of the lily pads to live, we will be going over top of any of the paint that you put there anyway, so don't worry too much if you've gone too into those sections. Could end up a good thing, could end up a happy accident, right? Maybe one side of your painting has more light than the other, because maybe there's a tree hanging over the water here. So for mine, I think I'm going to add a little bit more yellow and yellow-green on this side to give it more of a in the light, sun's hitting it sort of look. If you do need to take a break for any reason, you can go and come back. We'll be doing this for a little bit longer. You do like short brush strokes too. I'm doing some fairly long ones because I have a 20 by 16 canvas, but you can do little short ones too. So I'll show you what my palette looks like because it's pretty messy now. You can see I've got a lot of different variations in the green going in and the blue. I usually have a pretty messy palette. Again, don't be afraid to add a little bit of purple in here. You can lighten it up, you can add some blue to it, a little bit of variations going on. Going between the greens and the blues. I want these lines to be fairly thin, so I'm trying to use the edge of this brush to create some nice lines. Might be a little tricky to get the bottom, but just take your time. And if you need to apply some paint to it first and then go back in and flick it up to get that vertical line look, that's fine.
Brianna,
Yeah,
Pamela has a question, so
sure.
go ahead, Pamela.
Okay, sorry. I had to take a quick school phone call. But I totally was not watching. So are you just doing vertical stripes of various blues there?
Blues and greens, yeah.
Okay.
So I actually have 3 greens and 3 blues, but you can make a couple different ones to start if you want, or
Yeah.
you can mix it as you go on the same brush. I really don't rinse my brush off at all in this process either. I just keep going, kind of power
Okay.
through. Yeah,
Okay, thanks a lot.
you're welcome. So I feel like I will likely maybe go over a few spots that I feel are lacking some color. Again, all the black spots are just, you can go over them, but they're just a guide for me to see where I want the flow of the lilies and the lily pads to go. But what we'll do is we'll do this for another 15 minutes until the canvas is covered, and then we'll take a 10-minute break for anybody who wants to step away for any reason but doesn't want to miss out. So we'll give them a chance to get up and go to the washroom or get a drink or whatever might be happening. So I will paint in silence for about 15 minutes, and then we will take a 10-minute break.
Sorry, another question. Are you
Yeah.
kind of leaving that light where those lilies are going to be?
Yeah, it's not necessary because we can paint over because it's acrylic, but it's just for me as a guide to say, I know that this is where they'll be.
Oh, okay.
So you can go straight through it if you want, or you can come right up to sort of the area's edges, but it's up to you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if anybody needs to take a break, now seems to be a pretty good time. You want to stay and add more color, you can do that. If you want to show me what you have so far and you want some tips, you can put a message in the chat, and then we'll know to take a look at your box here on the screen. We'll move on to the actual water lilies at 11:40. Just reloading my palette with some colors that I've used up already. A lot of those same colors are going to end up in the lily pad area as well, so if you need to add more, you can see I have sort of like patches where there's green and there's patches where there's blue, so it doesn't have to just be like one line of color, one line of color. You really do want it very sporadic. We can also lump groups together. You see I'm sort of building up some layers here, and you can do the same if you're leaving. Right. Okay, so I'm gonna stop now to give it time to dry for the next step. So if you're still applying color, I would just recommend just apply whatever your intention is now, and then leave it alone and trust the process. I'm just going to add a little bit of magenta. So if you have magenta, that's great. If you have pink, that's great. If you want your water lilies to be yellow, add a little bit of yellow. If you want them to be white, make sure you have lots of white available on your palette. We are going to be mixing some of these darker colors with the light colors and building layers just like we did with the vertical lines. We're going to now do it with the horizontal lines. And it doesn't really matter what color you start with as a base. I'll likely do a nice light blue, but then I will be adding, I'll be adding like white to my magenta, white to my violet, white to my yellow green, white to my yellow, white to my, my different blues. And I'll be slowly building up these clusters of lily pads. And what I'm going to do is I will start here in this corner, the right corner, to give you a quick lesson in the stroke that I'm going to be using. And then from there, again, it's up to your version of where the lily pads live. The brush I'll be using again, just a flat square brush. Depending on the size of your canvas, you might want one that's a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. And the very important thing to remember when doing this part of the painting is that things that are closer to you are larger. That means at the halfway point, these lily pads should be half the size of the ones in the front. And then these ones going back take half off of that size as well. So this would be a quarter of the size of these ones. But again, using your own creativity, your own skills, your own perspective, you can adjust accordingly. Okay, I'm just going to mix up my light blue that I'm going to use as just my foundation to cover those markers. A little bit of white. Mix it with some blue. So the blue I'm using is called Blue Neon. And it's from the dollar store actually. So any nice sort of light, pleasant, brightish blue will work. And then I'm gonna mix it with some white. And this is just gonna be the first swipe of the lily pads. And again, this is freeing, so it doesn't have to be exact. You're making an impression of a lily pad. So we're gonna go through and build these layers up first, and then after, the last step will be if you wanna add definition. I'll show you how to add the shadows underneath, which is pretty simple, the water lilies, and then also I can show you sort of how to turn more the strokes into more of a lily pad shape. So if you want to go through and change them all and be very detailed afterwards, you can. Okay. So I'm loading my brush up with this light blue mixture that I've just made.
Brianna, may I interrupt for 1 second? I just got a message. And my apologies. We do have security settings set up.
Yeah.
So what's happening is somebody wanted to share and show a picture. But what's happening, Rochelle, is we don't do share screen. So what you can do is you can open up your video.
Mic.
You can start your video on your screen, and then you can show your art that way.
There we go. Okay.
Because what we do is we have some pretty strict protocols for just protection for the participants and the artists. So we don't allow other people to share the screen, just the artist, just so you know. But if you start your
I can see hers now, yeah.
See it. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sorry if it was frustrating. It's just we have to be really careful. There we go. Awesome. Okay, great. I'm glad I
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so Rochelle, I would say if you were inclined to, I think it looks really good for the background, but say you were inclined later, you could add a little bit more green to that. I see just a little bit of green and a lot of blue, but right now it does look good to me for the next step. And also keep in mind that you're going to receive a recording of this. So if you want to try it again, like another time, then you can do that too. So Rochelle, do you want to turn your camera and your mic off? And then I think the way Zoom works is that if they can hear you, then your spotlight. There we go. I can still see you. Okay. So, are we good to go, Roxanne? Everything's back to the view you want?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I'm just gonna go in with this light blue. And I'm gonna go ahead and plot out.
I can't see your screen.
Okay, so in that case, you need to put me on speaker view, and everybody's mics has to be off.
It's the other person's screen that needs to be worked on because her Roxanne is why you see her figment.
Oh, okay.
It's Roxanne O'Brien who needs to take hers off so he can get you back.
Okay, let me start again. back. Sorry, I had to move some things around, so I apologize for that. So let's pin. How is that?
Please show the share screen at the end. Have the artist go through her presentation first, please.
Now hang on, hold on. I just
Oh,
want
I need to be on speaker view.
So Rochelle, if everyone, so
Am
Rochelle,
I?
if you could just turn your camera off, and then I can see. I'm going to start here. I'm going to remove the spotlight, and I'm going to go to Rhiannon. I'm going to spotlight her for everybody.
Mhm.
And then
It's okay now. That's great.
great. Yeah, sorry. It's always these weird, wonky Zoom things. So
That's why I think if we just go through your presentation at the end, then you can show the share screen. That's what some of these other people do, so you don't have problems.
Right. Well, I just removed something. So is that showing as Rhiannon in the middle of the screen for everybody now?
Yeah,
Yes, for me, it's okay.
Yes, for me.
Okay, great. Because that's all I want. I just want Rhiannon to be in the middle for you all.
okay.
And I apologize for that. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to pin her, and that should. I think
Can everybody hear me?
we're good the way we are. Okay.
Can everybody hear me?
We don't see the screen, or we can hear you, but we don't see your screen again.
Okay. It was just on there. I saw
We
myself.
need to move the screen towards Rihanna to see it.
Is that good now?
No, it
I
says
can see
Figment.
No, I think these people need to put their video off, because I see Roxanne O'Brien's Figment again. You know, she had that special thing on her video.
You have
Yes.
to swipe right or left depending where Rihanna is, and then click on her screen. You will see it in full.
Yeah, if you click on Rhiannon, it should show for you, because I'm not pinned. And what I'm trying to do is repin Rhiannon for us. So I've done that now. So you need to change your view to the speaker view at your end, I do believe.
I can't do it because I don't even see your screen to get the pin. I pin you, but I can't even get that, because right now it's Roxanne, and it's once we went to that share screen, that was it. It threw everything off.
Right. But you're not pinning me.
I think if everybody turns their mics off, and if it's on speaker view, that my sound will be the only one left, and then mine will show up. Is it working?
So
Yeah, I have you now.
awesome.
Can we just stay on that, please?
Yes. So in
Good for me
future,
too.
if anybody wants to share their work, just start your video and then turn your video back off. I think that's the best way to do it for this purpose. Okay,
Okay. We're good?
we're all good. And remember, we're still recording, so if you don't want to have your face showing in the video, you can stop your video.
Rihanna, could you start that Lily again, please? I missed the entire thing. Your stroke.
Yeah,
stroke.
that's fine. But you can see me now?
I can see you, but I don't see the
Okay.
bottom part of your the canvas.
Okay. So I'm gonna bring it.
That's great.
Okay. So basically, we're gonna do short strokes vertically. So it's just this. And what I'm doing is I'm covering those areas that I sort of mapped that I wanted my lily pads to live in. So at the front, I might use longer strokes. And then as I go to the back, my strokes will get a little bit shorter. And I might even, if I have another flat brush that's smaller, when I get back here, they'll be even shorter. And what we're doing is we're creating texture, but we're also just creating a base. So this is a free moment for you. Don't try to do exactly what I do. Look at where, what your canvas is saying to you. And maybe it's saying you want one right here. Maybe it's saying there needs to be one right there. Sort of feel it out. And don't worry about making a mistake because we're going to be adding lots of colors. We'll have lots of times to sort of correct it and mold it into what you want it to look like. Now I'm pulling this right to the edge on mine, sort of like the painting goes on forever. It's not contained in this box. Okay, and then I'll move to this section and my strokes will just be a little bit shorter. And if you have a smaller one and you want more control, you can use a smaller brush. Now you don't want it to be straight across, so you do want it to sort of have like a staggered and really natural look. When lily pads grow in a pond, they tend to take on these strange cluster shapes. The only important rule here is just larger in the front and smaller as we go back. So if these ones are now half the size of that, the ones further back have to be even smaller. And I'm just filling in those areas that I left open. And it's okay if your underpainting is showing through right now because we are adding lots of different colors on top to give it nice depth and interest. I like to use a light blue just because I can see it on top of these darker colors. These little ones up here. Again, as I'm filling it in, I'm considering, like, what does this little world of mine look like? Is there a few coming out this way too? you know, that I didn't save room for or plan for, but now want. You can put them wherever you want. And then as I get back down to the front, I'm going to make larger strokes. So I'll go back to my larger brush. If you have a slightly larger and smaller one, you can do this too. If not, just use the tip or the corners of your large brush. So I'm going to go up here. I just use like a corner of it. And down here, I can use the full brush stroke. You can see very freeing, no real rule to this, just being your creative self. You're basically, right now, you're just telling the lily pads where they live, and you're going to give them a little bit of color and shape later on. Right. Okay, so my layer of blue is done. I think what I want to do next is a really light magenta over top of these. So I guess all of my lily pads are really going to have a common theme of almost a pastel looking palette. So I'll wash my brush off for that. I'm just gonna mix some of my magenta. There we go. So some magenta with white. Set up. Lots of white. This magenta is pretty dark. I want it really, really pastel looking. Maybe you want your magenta a little bit brighter. That's good too. It's up to you. Okay. Well, I'm just using one of the smaller brushes that I have, and I've loaded it up with this really light version of the magenta.
Brianna, Emma has
yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
Emma, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's kind of dry now, so I don't know. I just wanted to know if you thought my lines were like too intentional. I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead, but just wanted to see what you think.
Okay. I don't. You can put your screen on. Let's take a look. I can't see, but I guess like the one tip I would give right now is, yeah, you don't want it to look too matchy on both sides. Like you don't want it to look linear. So if you have,
It definitely doesn't match, but you can see the lines. So I guess you can't see what I'm doing. That's okay. I'll just keep going. Thanks.
Hang on.
okay.
Hold on. Let me try this without us kind of ending up where we were before. I just want to, let me see if we'll allow me to try now.
You can take some time to blend a little bit more now if you'd like. If you're talking about the lines going up and down, yeah, take some more time, or even afterwards with like a diluted paint color to sort of like blend a little bit more. But also, like if you're talking about the lily pads, we're gonna add about 4 or 5 more layers on top of them. So right now, if they look intentional, they're about to look really messy.
No, I was talking about my lines on my water.
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you wanted to go back over, maybe just make like a diluted blue, like a little bit of water.
I'm exactly doing that right now, actually.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah, because you can sort of add, it's acrylic, right? So you can paint over and, you know, and it's so, it's almost like an abstract impression painting, right? So you could really, you know, go to town and like go back in there and mix up some more stuff because you can paint over acrylic. So it's never the final stroke. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with some of this pink now. And I'm not gonna go over every stroke that I did with the blue, but I'm definitely gonna add a lot of pink in and out. And then the next color I'll do is I'll add a lot of white to my yellow green or my yellow and also my violet, and I'll carry on from there. So the first color I'm gonna use is this pink. You can kind of get the idea now that blue was really just a base. And this is where you're slowly adding detail, but it's still, you're not painting the shape of a water lily per se. That'll come later with some shading. I'll give you sort of a taste of what that might look like just right now while you're adding some more colors. So like later on, once you have all your colors added, we can turn this into shape of a water lily pad just by adding some color underneath to give it a little bit of a shadow, and by drawing around the edge. So you can see how this is sort of like a final step, that you can give them shape later on if you want to give them shadow and shape. Right now, this step is all just about getting the colors on. So we'll get to this other sort of more defining level, and that will be the last thing that we do. Right now, I just want to add my pink. And again, there's no rhyme or reason, it's just however you're feeling. Wherever you want that pink to sit. Maybe there's a tree above and it's got pink flowers in it and they're sort of reflecting. Maybe the lily pads themselves have some pink pigment in them. And again, just because you've added the blue doesn't mean you don't, you're not allowed to say, you know what, I want another one right there. I think you can add as you go. It's just about being free to create. And if, you go through this class and you learn some of the skills and you want to do like a really great well done practice piece later, you can just rewatch this and take another stab. And remember that these are always shorter back there, and these big guys up here. I want these strokes to be a little bit larger, and then get small.
You said that's magenta. It looks white. Is that white or magenta?
Here, I'll bring it up to I put a lot of white in it, but it's a pink. Can you see that?
You froze. I don't see anything.
Well, I'm just putting the brush in front of the camera with the pink on it. So, you see that? It's a very light pink color. So all of these colors we've been using are going to be muted with some white. I might come back and add more of this pink later, but I'm going to move on to a muted version of the green yellow that I have. Or you can use yellow for this, or green. So this is the green yellow. I'm going to add some white to that now. So I'm going to load my brush up with light and green yellow, with a nice light pastel-y version. And again, I'm going to go around and see how I feel like. Do I want a larger yellow one down here? How much do I want throughout the whole thing? You can sort of plan it out in your mind, or you can just go for it. And just remember the size of your strokes, they get a little bit smaller as you go back more. Next, I'm going to go in with some pale violet or light purple. I'm going to take some of the violet that I used in the background, add a little bit of white to it. Same process, we're just building layers of color, layers of interest. You can overlap. Longer strokes in the front. This is starting to give you the illusion that there's layers and the lily pads are sort of clustered together and sitting on top of each other. And I'm adding all these sort of calming pastel colors, but just because I'm done with the magenta or the green doesn't mean I can't go back in it. Use it again if I want as another layer. So I think that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go and add some greens. some of the darker green. And the forest green here that I've used. I might just lighten it up a touch, go back in, and then maybe even go and do a blue again afterwards. So just building it until you're quite happy with how it looks. Yeah, mix some of this blue. I'm gonna go back in. It's got a touch of green in it, so it's like a really light blue-green. I use that in the background as well, but I'm gonna add some to the lily pads now. Don't be afraid to go over the edges of ones that maybe you already have on there. Or maybe you decided you don't want as much blue, so you want to add more pink. Add some more of this bright green, add highlights where maybe the light is getting through. Okay, you can add yellow if you'd like. I think I'll add a little bit of yellow, a bit of muted yellow. It's not too bright. Just remember to lengthen those strokes in the front with the illusion of longer paths. Add a few more over here. And I'll give you guys about 10 more minutes to add your colors, and then we'll start on we'll add a few water lilies, and then we'll also start on adding some shadows underneath by using the darkest blue that you have. In the past, a lot of people like to keep the water lilies to just white. But I'd like to add some magenta and yellow in there. So I'll show you how to do that. And sometimes if you're having trouble, it's really good if you get up and step back and almost step across the room and take it in as a whole picture. Take your eyes off it for a few minutes and look at it from a fresh perspective. Feel like I need more yellow in mine, so I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow up here. I like the pop of color that yellow brings.
Hi, me again. Oh, I have my microphone on. Okay, I'm still only at this step, the light blue, putting the lilies on. Was next magenta?
Yeah, it can be. You can do it in any order
Okay.
because you can roll back around again too. So like now I'm at the point where I have all my colors on, but I'm adding green again.
Okay, so it was magenta, yellow, and green.
Yeah, and I did use light blue again later on too.
Okay.
Yeah. So really it's just those colors that you used in the background. I used a light purple, a light magenta, that's new because we didn't use that in the background. Light green, a mixture of like a blue green. So just using whatever's on my palette and lightening it up.
So Rhiannon, I was thinking near the end, if everybody wanted to, what I could do is I could remove all the pins and all the spotlights, and maybe everybody could go to I guess it's the gallery view, and then everybody can start their videos if they wanted to and show you what they've been working on so far, and that might be a good little Q&A period, just sort of for the wrap up at the end. What do you think?
I'd love to see everybody's, yeah, like that. Yeah.
Okay. So you let me know when you're ready to.
Could you quickly show us the shadow and the final detail, just maybe a 2-minute thing of the final aspect of it? Could you do that?
I can do that right now, yeah. If you're ready, let's do it. Okay, so using a round brush, whatever size you have, I'm gonna make it work. Sorry, I'm gonna get it in front. Okay, so round brush. We're gonna use the tip. And I'm gonna start with the white because most people, they like a white lily. Okay, it's very, very, very simple. In fact, I think I might do one on here and then I'll pull it closer so you can really see what I've got here. So I'm getting the tip loaded with paint. And I'm gonna pick where I want my lily to go now. Of course, in the front, again, bigger, going to the back, smaller. So something back here might just end up being like a dot or maybe like 2 little dots. But up front, you do want it to look a little bit more like a lily. So you just pick where you want the placement to go. And you're pulling down using the tip to make the shape for you. So you can literally just use the brush. There it is. So you can see I did it 5 standing straight up and then 2 more coming sort of from the bottom up a little bit. What I like to do that, like I've got the white on, you can leave it white if you want, but I really like to add a little bit of magenta to it or yellow. So I'll add the magenta to this one and you just basically go over what you did. So you've got all the leaves. You're doing it again. The petals or whatever they are. And you can play with it too. So you can add another layer of white or lighten it up if you want, if you find it's too bright. But because you're using the tip, it just makes it so easy. Okay. Now you can add like a little yellow to it. Like I said, I like to add a little bit of yellow. So you can either do a water lily exactly the same, but yellow instead of magenta, or you can literally just like add like a little dollop of yellow to it. And that sort of changes how it looks too. So some people like to add that. It makes it look like there's something in the middle. So I'll bring that closer so you can see the yellow. And then from far away, of course, all the Monets, like Mikey made them like wall size for these giant rooms, right? They're all meant to be looked at from far away and taken in as one whole piece. So don't concentrate too much on getting it perfect. Like we're not doing a large water lily, like a painting of a water lily today. We're doing, you know, very abstract impressions of what water lilies look like. So where the sun hits them, their basic form. Yeah, so don't be too particular. And I'll do the shadowing again. So you can use, if you're comfortable using a round brush for this part, you can, or you can use a flat brush again. So what I'm doing, I'm just gonna take my darkest blue, and that's gonna be my shadow color. And I'll dip my paintbrush in some water, load it up with the darkest blue, and then I'll come around to the under parts of each cluster, and I'll add a little bit of a shadow underneath some of the parts, and at the same time you can shape some of them too. So for instance, I'll do this one. So I'm coming around underneath it, and then under this one too, the one that the water lily is sitting on. Adding, you take your time with this. Just adding a little bit of shadow work here. You can go right underneath the whole cluster of them. Keep a pretty light hand. You don't want to add too many shadows like in the middle of it, but you definitely want them under it. So again, over here, just gonna add a little bit here. You don't want to underline every single one, but you do want to sort of go towards the outside of them and under. And so I'll bring it closer again, but you can see how this takes on a different shape and look than this, just by adding a little bit. Sort of grounds them, anchors them. But you don't want to do every single lily pad, because it takes away from the illusion. You're taking away from the impression of it. You're then trying to draw a water lily with your paintbrush. I'll do some on this side.
Excuse me, would you ever shadow the back, the very back, or would you not?
Yeah, I definitely would, because you know the shadows exist everywhere. So I would just be very slow with it. Take it from the edges. Maybe use a smaller brush. That's why I say you can use the round ones. You can use the tip for this if you like. Now this is more where you're in the back, definitely more impressionist than the front. Like just be brave with your strokes. Say the shadow lives here, and then that's it. The shadow lives there. So if you want to maybe add a little shadow in the middle there, maybe they're broken up or a tree branch is hanging there, it's blocking some of the sun. You can do that. You just gotta be the creator of your own world and just take the plunge. And like this is your first time doing this type of painting, so be easy on yourself, gentle. And then once you take these techniques, I always tell people just put a canvas under your arm and bring a bag full of paints and go down to the park and look at a pond and try to do the vertical and place the color where it is in the water vertically and the lily pads across horizontally, and see if you can apply these techniques to a plein air situation. These short, intentional brush strokes. And the bright colors, the bold colors, you're being bold. You can't be afraid of color. Okay, I'm going to do another water lily now with my round brush. I think someone's microphone is still on. I can hear some rustling. If your microphone is on, take a look and turn it off. If you want a white water lily, you might have to go in 2 or 3 times to build the white because you have that dark blue and green in the background, but that's okay. You can also just add a little bit of color to it. I'll add a little bit of yellow here. And so in my world, there's a white and yellow water lily. And it's sitting on this lily pad. It needs a little bit of shadow. So just because you're done the lily pads doesn't mean you're not able to go back. So you go back anytime you want. If you want to add more green to one or anything like that, it's your world. And then, so yeah, like I said, like when the lily pads are further back, of course, they're gonna have to be smaller. So like back here, they might just be, just like mentions. But then here, you're getting a little bit closer, so you want them to be half the size of these ones. So then you just kind of make sure that whatever the size is, that it makes sense, the grand scheme of the painting. that would be the basics of that. And then you want to spend time doing that, right? So you want to spend time fixing up things or adding more detail. And this is the final part where you add details. So you can take your time with this. And if you don't finish it today with me, I likely won't finish mine because, I like to go back to it. And yeah, so today might not be the last day that I work on this painting, but it's definitely gotten a very good start. Lots of colors. And if you need to spend more time on it another day, that's fine. You can come back to it. Adding in a few more water lilies.
So Brianna, and it's Roxanne here. So in a few minutes, we should start wrapping up. And maybe we can have everybody do a little show and tell, and then that will give you enough time for any questions and things like that.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds good. So if anybody's wanting to share their piece where it is now, let's see if anybody wants to, maybe in the comments.
I'm gonna remove here, so I think if everybody goes into, I believe it's a gallery view, then we should be able to see everybody in one big block together.
Okay.
And then everybody can start their videos and show their work and have them cute.
Does anybody want to show your work? Don't see anybody. Does anybody have any questions?
Actually, I want to share mine.
You do?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, let's see it.
I want to have you open it.
Oh, wow. That looks so good. Wow. Look at all those water lilies. Yay. Looks really good. You did a great job.
Thank you.
And so close to the colors I used too. We must have the same paints.
I guess it's better from far than from close.
Yeah, far. It's supposed to be looked at from far away. Yeah. Good. Very cool. Does anybody else want to show theirs? Pamela? There we go. Oh, that looks good. Oh, I can't hear you though.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm like totally in what do you call it? Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Like wrong artist. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. No, this is very like abstract too. So yeah.
Yeah, because unfortunately I totally just missed the part where like you were layering. So if you see it, like it's kind of
it's a little stark. So yeah, you can always go back in. There's no, like I said, you can go right on top of acrylic, right? Until it looks good for you.
So is it just basically like you're just layering those colors, the greens and the yellow and the pink?
And I did a little purple in there too. Variations of blues and greens, just like the background, but lightened up with white. And then the shadow is the darkest blue that I have. Now I did a little bit with the flat brush. I'm going in right now with the tip to sort of show you guys how you can add even more definition afterwards. But you did a great start, and because you missed that layering portion, that's the piece that's missing, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But it looks good for missing that piece. So you can go back in with layers too, and you can paint right over top of acrylic. So even though
so then it's just a matter of like me deciding where I want to put that.
Yeah, and that's a little. Exactly. And that's what gentle painting is all about. It's a little foreign to people to express themselves, and it kind of is like, you're waiting to be told how to do something, but this, I really encourage you to make your own choices. And that could be a little daunting and scary and frustrating too, but it's a good exercise if you work through it. And then at the end, you're going to find you love what you created because it's yours, it's your design. So, and you can always send an email of your final product too, because I'd love to see it. All right, does anybody else have one to share? No, I see a few more people in here, but you can always share a picture later as well through email. And then if Roxanne wants to pass them along to me, I'd love to see them.